over the next few weeks, I intend to do a couple of videos. I kind of slacked off there for a while. I wanted to start by going over something real simple and basic, but really important if we're going to understand and make use of any kind of philosophical argument or a political argument about the nature of what's going on right now. And I thought the one place I would begin, that I would make a simple video and explanation of how things work, would be to look at the basics of Western civilization. I'm in the middle of reading Plato's Republic right now, but I took some time to think about and look over a lot of information online, and I wanted to break Western civilization down into basically four pillars. That there's four pieces to the philosophy that has led us to Western civilization. Western civilization is built around the idea of the individual as being extremely important and valuable, and the center of the actual nature of the civilization itself. It is individual centric, and there are important reasons for that are not just philosophical, but they touch us in real life, and they inform the things that we do and the way that we operate, and I thought it would be good to know them. So I'm going to give these to you in a specific order as well, because it matters that you see how the four pillars build on each other and how they're used to create basically the civilization that we consider the West today. The first one is based on Judaism. Judaism, but just by its nature, the very first little bit of the Torah itself tells us that people were made in the image of God. This gives people, the individual person, a permanent and unlimited value. And even God himself, throughout the Jewish scriptures, always paints people as valuable. He even goes so far as there's a place in the Old Testament where God says that he takes no pleasure in the death of the ungodly, which is an interesting statement, because you would think, okay, well, these people are have chosen to turn away and are not God's friends, and so why would he care? But even with that, he says, I'm not getting any joy out of this. This is not what I had in mind. And what's happened, and it's really been hit or miss, and you can actually say it's probably not been the case as much as it has been the case, but especially recently, in Western society, the government is generally not able to capriciously take the life of a person. You have to have good cause and a good reason for it. That is not always applied. It obviously did not apply to the Soviets when it came to the Ukrainians. It did not apply to the Germans when it came to the Jews. But overall, the way that the West has done this is that the person's life is something that's so important that you just can't normally, in an everyday state, just take the life of a person. The government just does not have that power. Even in clear murder cases where the person's guilty. Charles Manson, the young man that shot up the black church, who's a racist, and clearly did it, and clearly has no good intentions, no good purposes in mind. Even they have the right to defense and a trial by jury. We just don't give this right to the state, almost no matter what. The only limitations to that are to act in self-defense, to the rest of the society, to act in self-defense to our nation being attacked by our enemies. But other than that, we really limit. And it's all based on this idea that each of us is of incredible worth. And the beginning of that is God made man in his image. Thus, Judaism is the first pillar. It's the first step towards Western civilization. The next one is from Christianity, because Christianity adds a layer to that now that says that by grace you're saved through faith. And this is such an important principle in the New Testament that once again, even God is slow to violate it. He won't force himself on you. He doesn't push himself into your life in some supernatural and bizarre way. People's faith is much more sublime than that overall if you talk to people that are believers. And this is carried over into Western civilization as well, in that we feel that the right of people to have their own beliefs is also sacred in a very similar way to the way that God will not violate it. We also do not violate it. This is the reason that we have secret ballots for elections. As flimsy as the little stands are that they use these days, at least here in Arizona, there's still nobody standing over your back watching. There's no cameras. There's nobody waiting outside to beat you up if you vote the way they don't like. And the same thing applies to free speech. We have a right to express our opinions. We have a right to say in public how we feel. We have a right to give opinions on different subjects and different ideas and what we believe about it. And we hold these things to be sacred enough that we actually put them specifically in our Constitution. There's a right to free speech. There's a right to the free exercise of religion in particular, because those are central to the, I want to say, to the wholeness of the individual. If you take these away from an individual, then they're not really a separate player in the field of our society. They're only partial. They're puppets to be moved around, but they're not citizens. They're not individuals. And so, belief, the right to your beliefs, is the second pillar in this structure that makes up Western civilization. The third one actually comes down to individual authority, and it comes from the Greeks, who give us the idea of individualism itself. And for the Greeks, it comes down to the right of the individual to be an active player in their life and in their own history and in the history of their own society. Now I want to stop here and I want to tell a real quick story. And I love this story because it's so true, and it changed kind of the way I saw all this. Back when I was going to Arizona State University and getting my bachelor's degree, I decided I would go to school one summer, which was a horrendous idea in the heat. But I did it anyway. And one of the classes I took was a class on Greek history. And I'm sitting there in the class, we're all sitting there in the class, and on the first day, and this guy walks in, and he could have walked just right down off of the hills of Greece. I mean, he had shaggy hair, had a Greek facial structure. He had on this t-shirt and these shorts and sandals and this old book bag. He just plopped it down on this table, and it was just about half dusty. And I literally wanted to peek outside and see if he had left a staff leaning against the side of the building, some sheep outside. He literally looked like he just walked right out of history or something like that. And then he goes through the whole spiel of, this is my name, and this is the class, and blah, 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 and this is what we're going to do. And then the first words out of his mouth, once he finishes all that, he says, you've been told absolutely wrong. Socrates did not say, or Plato, whichever, did not say that man is a political animal. He said that man is a member of a polis, a city-state. He He belongs. He's an individual. He is right there. And in doing so, he just changed my whole idea of what it was that the Greeks were trying to get at. And you see this throughout everything that the Greeks touch. From Plato talking about the philosopher king and the nature of the tyrant, to basically all of their mythology and religion, right? You've got Hercules and his 12 toils that he undertook. You have at the Battle of Troy, the battle starts to tip against Troy when the gods intervene and say, okay, so we're going to let Hector go down, and Hector realizes this, and so Achilles chases him around the city, right, until he manages to kill him. But you see this over and over again. You see it in Odyssey. You see it in the Iliad. You see it just everywhere, played out. That it's the power of these individuals who step up based on their bravery and their skill and their intelligence and their ability, and they change the fate of these cities, right? The head of Medusa, right, is used to kill the Kraken and save the city just by one man's bravery and skill and a willingness to step forward and be a player in history. And so when we think about individualism, this is what Greeks had in mind. Now, unfortunately, modern capitalism and democratic society has a tendency to cater to people's perversions and their weaknesses and their selfishness, rather than direct us back to this active players in life and putting ourselves out there to help change and to help move our society and our countries and our civilization into better directions. And that's a shame, because that's really what the individualism was made for. All the rights that you're supposed to get with it are not supposed to be there so that you can sit in your couch and eat Doritos and watch TV all day, then, spend your evening looking at porn or whatever it is that you waste your time doing. It's really meant to allow you to have space to go out into society and to contribute. And as we can see, as hundreds of thousands of people do exactly that these people make our lives better, and they make our society better, and they make our civilization better. So the Greeks were dead on. We just need to get back to using it like that. And the fourth one comes from the Romans. And the Romans, they gave us something called citizenship. And citizenship isn't quite the same as individuality. Because citizenship takes the individual and they ensconce them with certain rights and responsibilities required by membership to the community. Citizens have the responsibility to obey the law. In return, they have the right to expect reciprocal behavior from both fellow citizens and from the government. This is the shield and the sword that the individual is supposed to be able to use to make sure that what's done inside the civilization is right and just and productive and efficient for both society and individual fellow citizens. And we see this in America in the Bill of Rights, which spells out what behavior a citizen can expect from an American society. You can't be held in jail indefinitely without being able to have a trial. You have a right to a trial by jury. As we've already discussed, you have a right to free speech and to religion. You even have a right to not be expected to house troops or soldiers. There are limitations placed on the government. But then there are also rights that the government has. The government has the right to collect taxes. The government has the right to conscript people in order to provide for our common self-defense. It has a right to allocate funds that are in the general welfare of the American society. And so this plays out in both directions. But a citizenship means that you belong. that this system that is developed and working around you, you have a right to participate in it at every level of it, as much as what you can and as much as your skills and your abilities allow. So that's the kind of the final pillar, the capstone that makes this all a contractual and official. You don't get to wonder whether or not the neighbor down the street has the same rights as you do, unless they may be an illegal alien these days. But for most of American society, these things were just taken for granted, that you're here, you're one of us, you're a citizen, so now you get, or you have these particular rights and responsibilities. So I hope that is a real basic, quick, but clear understanding of what these 4 pillars are like. And hopefully you'll find them useful. And if you do, just like the video, I appreciate it. And thank you very much.